And we start with a small presentation to give you a brief introduction of what social capital is about, a little bit of a trigger, and we will build a forum from now and the process. And here we have the two founders of Social Capital World Forum, Manfred Hellriegel from the Future Office of Vorarlberg region, and Colin Campbell from Assist Social Capital. So I would like you to start and present the background around the forum and what it's about.
Okay. Thanks very much, Bertilla. It's very pleasant to be here this evening in Bergkorn to launch the beginning of the Social Capital World Forum 2012 in Sweden. My organisation is called Assist Social Capital, which was set up as a bridge between academic information around social capital, social networks of trust and mutual understanding, and to make it practical. I work since early 2000. I've worked in third sector organisations about promoting community development in Scotland, and I had an interest in group dynamics, and I became aware of the terminology social capital in about 2002, and I was interested in getting involved in using social capital as a means to build resilient communities, sustainable communities. And so I started investigating social capital, and I found out that there's a whole world out there, academic information. If you look on Google, there's just, you could be there for centuries really reading the information about how beneficial social capital is. However, when you go to talk to people who are in civil society in the third sector, who many times are seen as the generators of social capital, they don't necessarily know what you're talking about, and that's a bit of a barrier. So I worked in an organisation called Scott Social Entrepreneurs Network for 8 years, and I used my knowledge of social capital as a strategic resource to build peer support networks for social entrepreneurs, bonding, bringing them together to build relationships where they could learn from each other and support each other, and bridging between the local networks and the more across Scotland, and also linking with politicians, people with finances, etc. Over the years, I was interested in trying to find other people who would see the value of social capital, and I struggled to do that. I ran a number of international conferences, and we had Robert Putnam's organisation came over in 2006 to Scotland. We regularly had over 120, 130 people come along from Scotland and various other places to hear about social capital, but still it wasn't getting any traction. In 2008 I went to a conference in Newcastle, in the borders between Scotland and England, to a conference where Robert Putnam was giving a presentation. Robert Putnam, the guru of social capital, and I had the opportunity to go down and listen to his presentation, and then also lucky enough to stay on and have a dinner with the people that are hosting the meeting, which meant I stayed on till the next day. And while it was a very interesting conference and interesting to hear Robert Putnam talk about social capital and how he'd been to visit the Queen and talk to her about how she could solve her this situations with her family through social capital, for me the most interesting element of the conference was the opportunity to meet Manfred, who was also over. And in the morning we had coffee, and when I listened to the work that Manfred was doing, I realised that this was somebody else who was using social capital strategically, with an understanding of the theory and using it effectively in practice. And from that point on we began to work together, and in 2009 I invited Manfred to come to Scotland to be the keynote speaker at another international conference in New Lanark, at which point was the launch of what is now the Social Capital World Forum. And I'll pass over to Manfred to give you his side of the story.
Yeah, I'm not sure if there is much to add.
Certainly.
But maybe my point of view or how I got involved with social capital, I'm working for the so-called Future Office or Office for Future-Related Issues, and it's a part of the state government of Vorarlberg, the most western province of Austria. And we were working on issues like community organizing, sustainable development, how to promote civil engagement in society. And it was in the year 2000 when I came across the books of Robert Putnam. And this was a real insight to hear or read about the social capital theory, because it explained a lot what we already did, but not really consciously. It was an explanation about the role of communities that cooperate in a trustful way. And it's not just about engaged people, but it's about the ability of people to cooperate, to collaborate. And that was the starting point when we started to engage ourselves, our institution, to first to raise awareness for the importance of social capital. But it became clear very soon that whenever we gave a presentation about the social capital theory, the first question that arose was, okay, that's interesting, but how can we generate, how can we promote social capital? And this is not really explained in Putnam's work. And so we started different projects, really from the scratch, and we also cooperated with universities and science institutions to evaluate all those social capital approaches. And throughout the years, I became more and more, I thought, I would like to see this guy who is responsible for the years of work we are spending in the area of social capital. So I started to Google if Putnam is somewhere around in Europe, and I saw that he was expected to attend a conference in Newcastle. So I went there, and to be honest, it was just for the purpose to see him, and then I had the chance to shake his hand, and for a small conversation you need to talk about something, and so I tried to figure out a question just the second when I approached him, and the most burning question for me at that time was to join a network of people who do similar work as we do, because throughout the years I never met people who consciously, decisively worked on the promotion of social capital. Many promote social capital in an indirect way, but very few with the intention to do that. And to my surprise, Putnam said, no, we don't have such a network, but please feel free to gather some people. At that, my first reaction was that I didn't take that much very serious. But fortunately, the organizers of the conference brought the two of us together. George Hepburn,
yeah.
and I guess it was also Lou Feldstein, the other guy that was traveling with Robert Putnam. He is also co-author of Better Together, the Better Together book. And actually they somehow made the connection and brought the two of us together for a breakfast or a conversation the next day. And this was really an important thing also for me, because we after a few minutes it became clear that we have found each other, and this was the start of not only of cooperation but also of friendship. And it didn't take long, and George and Colin visited me in Austria, and then I was invited to your conference, and it became very clear that we have to proceed, and we have to find a way to have a meeting point for people who are interested in a practical way to promote social capital.
Earlier today we had a seminar at the Gothenburg Civic Center, and there you present your work in the region of Vorarlberg. Can you tell me something about your work over the 20 years and what social capital means for development? Yeah, 3.
Yeah, basically, we started in the early 90s to organize some environmental campaigns, and the primary intention was to convince people to behave in a more economically sound way. And we did campaigns for the promotion of bicycles and to be more climate friendly and stuff like that. And it turned out that this was not really effective. It was okay, but after a relatively short period of time, people didn't want to hear those slogans anymore. But certain points of the campaign went very well. And so we started to explore the mechanisms of really successful changes in society. And this is how we discovered the area of self-organization. And this means that if you really want to do a powerful work, you should never deliver solutions, but encourage people to take over responsibility and find their own way and also their own goals. And this is politically a tricky thing because politicians usually don't want to let go of control. And this means that we are working since 15 years primarily in open-ended processes and with stunning results. I would say that since 15 years we tried to explore the limits of self-organization, and we haven't found them yet. It started that we worked with municipalities and encouraging citizens to improve their quality of life, whatever they discovered to be their quality of life. And it ended up with new approaches of participatory democracy, like wisdom councils with randomly selected people who make suggestions to the government or politicians how to cope with difficult issues.
And Colin, you have also been working with for 8-9 years with the Svenskap network. Can you tell about that and the social capital approach?
When I started at Svenskap, we had a bulletin and a website, and we were promoting the idea of social enterprise and social entrepreneurship. And my role was to go out and network with people, and that was as much strategy as we had network. And so I went around a number of agencies and talked to them about what social enterprise was, and I spent about 8-9 months talking to agencies and not meeting any social entrepreneurs or social enterprises. So I changed, and instead of going to talk to a room of 30 people who are working in an agency about social enterprise, I changed and started going and speaking to one social entrepreneur at a time. And from there, they would tell me 1 or 2 others, and I followed up. And instead of going and meeting 30 people and not meeting from there 1 other social enterprise, I changed tack and would speak to 1 person at a time, which seems like a bad use of resources, 1-to-1 instead of 1-to-30. But actually it was much more fruitful because they could tell me 1 or 2 other people that they knew. And so within probably 4 months I'd met 30-40 new social entrepreneurs, people we didn't know about. And one of the things that I realised from working with them is they were isolated and they didn't have a voice, and they were being, because they were in a new space, they would go to the usual support agencies and they would be sent from pillar to post, and nobody really knew what to do with them, and they were feeling a bit like a square peg in a round hole. And so from my understanding of social capital, of bridging, bonding, linking, building networks of trust, I suggested to people that they come together as a group and support each other. And after some time talking about that, somebody said, yeah, okay, I'll host a meeting. and 13 people came together, and we provide them with lunch. And after speaking about what is social enterprise for nearly a year, in 20 minutes they had changed the subject. They'd moved on. They all knew they were social entrepreneurs. They had a common understanding, and from that common understanding they quickly began to work together, and they told each other how to overcome problems. So they didn't have to reinvent the wheel, and that informal learning meant they were able to improve their businesses. They felt less isolated. It also changed the power balance, so they were in a position that they could invite people to visit them as a group, and so they could invite the bank, they could invite funders, they could invite support agencies, and they were in a position where it was up to them what happened. And from that, by word of mouth, we got to the point where there were 7 different social enterprise networks around Scotland. And it was all just because people coming together who understood each other, they quickly learnt from each other, and they were able to move on much more quickly. So there's now 24 networks, social enterprise networks, but it was based on this idea of come together on a basic understanding, shared value around social enterprise, trading, and then gradually we began to build networks and links with politicians. And we also have an annual event, and the learning and the cascading of learning based on this idea of connecting people, which came from the theory of social capital, has been very, very effective. And they're now in a position where you have an infrastructure of connected individuals who are able to respond to opportunity very quickly, and they are much, much more effective businesses. Now what I'm doing, the social enterprise networks were based on this idea of self-organisation. At the time I didn't really understand that idea, but we called it a light touch, which meant that we were doing as little as possible so that these people were being empowered to do what they wanted to do. I'm now working in a situation where, with a housing association in a deprived area in Scotland, and using a social capital approach to go in and to find individuals who are doing interesting things in the community, a community that normally everybody talks about how negative things are, but actually there's lots of people in this community doing good things. So we are finding them, connecting them to opportunities, to each other, and building those connections again, and empowering them to develop their ideas in a way that is sustainable, because it is very low cost. When you use these networks and use that knowledge that's already in the community, it's much, much less expensive than if you take a top-down approach and come in and say, we know what's wrong, we'll deliver it for you, rather than finding the people in the community. So again, it's not something that we go in and tell the people that we're talking to about social capital, but we use it as a framework, and it makes our job much, much easier.
It was very interesting this morning when you spoke about social change and finding people. How could you tell a little bit about that, Manfred? How you work in the region to make the change going there and start to work in a resilient way?
I guess you mean the snowball effect.
Yeah.
Actually, that was when we had a major shift in our strategy. We started to work with an approach where we start, most of the time we start with talking to the mayor, and the mayors often have the experience that they have to do the work alone and they are not supported by the public. And in our approach, we recommend to the mayor to step back a little bit, be not the leader as he is used to be, but give a space for the community to organize and the citizens to become active. And we do this in a way of a sort of a snowball effect. We randomly select a group of, let's say, 15 people. And the important point is to randomly select, not to have the usual suspects, but a new group of people. And it's not necessary that they know each other. And with them, we talk about the future of their community and what is really concerning them. And we tell them that actually nobody really cares about their future. Not the regional or state government or the federal government. If they want to improve the quality of life, they have to do it themselves. But if they want to do it, we will support them doing that. So the next step is that each of these 15 people brings 3 other people to the next gathering. And so the group is constantly growing. And let's say for the next gathering, 45 people come together. And then there is again a task they have to do. And the next step is that they have to describe, to make a list of those people in their community who play an important role for the quality of life. And this is always a very important lesson for the citizens, because until then they are primarily focused on deficits, what is missing, what is not working in their community. But now the first time they make somewhat like an inventory of their assets, and they consciously acknowledge and appreciate those people in what they have. And this is a very empowering and encouraging experience for them. And this gives them the power to proceed. And usually then, as the next step, they celebrate what they have. And this is the official start of an ongoing process. And we have communities where we just started this process, and after a short period of time we left them, and still after 15 years they are still working and evolving. And this is a very powerful example that often you don't need to counsel them or give them grants or the worst thing is to fly in experts who tell them what to do. But what we have learned with this approach is that there is a huge competence and power and wisdom within every community. But you have to create a room where this creativity and wisdom can emerge.
You told also about yesterday when we had a meeting about how they presented the setting and the power balance. Did you get some initially? How did you come about? How did they tell about what they are speaking about?
I'm not sure if
when they present, they are giving the task and the wisdom council the question, and then when they present it for the politician, for example, how do they do that? You spoke about the setting. How do?
Oh yeah, when we started with the wisdom council, so the wisdom councils are a special way to help a group of people to find a solution, let's say, for a tricky problem that the community is dealing with. And this is a very powerful approach. But when we had the first presentation of the result, we were sitting in a cinema style in the audience. And what we discovered is that this cinema setting itself is a reinforcement of a top-down atmosphere. And we try to avoid this. So for the next presentations, we organized a World Cafe setting. And this enabled the people to have a conversation on eye level. This is very important, especially for communities where there are lots of conflicts and where some powerful people try to manipulate the results. We have discovered that the World Cafe setting is helping to balance out the energies and bring out the wisdom of groups.
Colin, do you have something to add?
I suppose I'd just like to add that I think it's great that we're here in Sweden. We had the first Social Capital World Forum in Scotland, and then the next 2 years were in Austria and Vorarlberg. The second one hosted by Manfred, and then the third one by the University of Applied Science in Vorarlberg, which is a very lovely place, and we had a very good time there. But it's good to be in Sweden. We're moving it to a different area, doing something different, and working with yourselves. You're going to host it this year, and brings a new dimension, opens up new opportunities, new networks. And this afternoon was a good example of that in the workshop, when we invited people to get involved in organising the conference, and the number of offers and opportunities that we discovered here in Sweden. I think it's going to be an exciting event, and I'm very much looking forward to it.
Do you remember a few of them? Could you tell a few about the suggestions that came up at the group?
Yeah, there's with us this evening, there's an organisation who can host in families, so there'll be an opportunity for people to bridge with local people and local culture and get to know, so we'll be tapping into that. There was also an offer from somebody who is running an environmental consultancy to have a visit to the forest. And I think we're going to
sleep outside.
Yeah, well, for some people perhaps, with a big bonfire. And the other one was about singing and changing the world through song. But there were others.
They said also, if I'm not mistaken, about we should work beyond Europe.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, yeah. There was a guy from Somalia who's very keen to make sure that we acted as a bridge to other countries, and this is something that Philip Greer mentioned as well, the idea that the conference is like a global village, that we're working internationally in the space that we're in Sweden, but also opening up the opportunity for people around the world who are keen to be involved to do their own thing at a local level as well. So that's something we're keen to support as well.
What do you see as a challenge for a World Forum in this type of network?
I don't see that much the challenge. The challenge is probably for you to organize the whole stuff. I see a huge opportunity, and I'm really excited because the people we met today, so many encouraged people and who have lots of great ideas, and I guess you started early enough to have a good process to prepare the next work for them.
We had also some idea with the apps. Can you tell something about that?
If I understood it, I would. I found it a little confusing, but there's a guy who's working on using apps, and maybe Philip can tell you more about it, but the idea that we can combine gaming with using an app which is on your phone, so it means that you can be connected to everybody instantaneously in order to release the resources and the skills, as far as I understand it. But this is something we have to work on. Again, the idea this afternoon very much came up in line with what you're thinking about, is connecting with activities that are and events that are happening between now and November, and working with people in partnership to come up with new ideas and new opportunities.
Okay, we are now trying to get some contact with Germany from Hanover, so I thank you, Manfred and Colin. You can take a seat.
Thank you.
So now we hope the technology will work. It's always a challenge.
Hello?
Hello.
Hi.
We will see you in a few seconds here. So you can start as tell who you are.
Right now?
Yeah. We start to see you a little bit.
Are we on or?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I can see what's happening over there, but I welcome everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you for inviting me for a short presentation. My name is Joy. It's an artist name. My real name is Jörg Lohmann. I'm a designer and artist based in Hanover in Germany. And I'm working in integrated art. What means it's integrative art processes in public space. And I'm focusing mostly on recycling rafts and floating islands because of two reasons. Rafts and islands are an archaic symbol and a dream of everybody, at least the man, to build their own raft. And this is very powerful to attract co-creators in such processes. And the second reason for building rafts and islands is that we urgently need all kind of floating structures in the future, and the demand on it is rising with seawater levels. So we decided to start building rafts and islands, and we are a growing group now, internationally networked with different co-creative communities. And well, that's mostly what I'm doing. And right now we're participating at a challenge, a design challenge by Architecture for Humanity. And yesterday we finished the first pitch for it, our design modeling, and it's not ready yet, but I would love to show it to you and maybe get some feedback of you all.
How do you relate to social capital? How was it for you? How do you connect your work with social capital?
Well, as an artist, I work very much with social capital because art is the best social capital. And we need, for a sustainable society, we need more values than only the value of money. And there is a good opportunity within art projects to network all kind of social capital and to learn how to use it. Because in artistic projects, you don't work with a budget plan and calculation, and it's more about co-creating and.
Okay, it's gone. It's gone.
So synergy is what happens in art. And this is, I think, the social capital.
We have a small animation from your future project. You are doing several, as I understand. We will try to show it here, and you can speak a little bit to it.
Yeah, I can't see anything here right now.
It starts now. It starts.
Okay, so I try to remember what you're seeing right now. Well, it's about the transformation of a sea fortress, which was built in 1942 to defeat the German raids. And it's in 1968, 1967, I think, it was captured by a British eccentric who declared it a principality. So it's still standing there at the seashore of Great Britain, pretending to be a sovereign country, which is very interesting. No real country bothers, but in the scene of co-creators, of crazy artists, creative minds, they all know about Sealand. It's called Sealand, and so it's a really interesting symbol to address these creative folks for a joint project. And we're going to establish a multiversity, the multiversity of 7 seas, there at this platform. and yeah, it's a co-creation platform. Another form for global change, of course, but we have got a different concept, or maybe strategy. We don't only want to meet online and compare our single efforts, but we want to focus on real projects, because I think you can network online. It's perfect. We've got the perfect communication opportunities now to really work globally. But what's missing is to really work together, to do hands-on projects, to help each other out, to improvise reality, and this is what Sealand comes in. I mean, it's nearly impossible to go there anyway. So everybody on the world has the same chance to participate at Sealand Multiversity. So it's not a real place, but at least it's no, it is a real place, but it's not easy to visit. But for online communities, it's very helpful to have something in common which really exists to rely on. And well, this is our platform we're just starting, so maybe in November we can present what came out, what we've achieved till then. This is our community for co-creation of all kind of floating inventions or solutions, and yeah. The big picture we're working on is ASAP Island, which means as soon as possible island. It's about a floating habitat out of recycled materials, and also there we are not alone. So many architects or designers, engineers are planning to construct floating cities or whatever, but most of them have a budget plan and need billions and billions of dollars to start with it. And then floating structures will be addressed to the millionaires only, because they can afford it to live on such a platform. But I think that it's not the millionaires who need artificial ground or floating islands. It's the poorest of us all, living in Bangladesh or at Maldive Islands, in Tonga, Tuvalu, all these small islands that are drowning actually. And so we came up with a system to work without money. It must be totally cost-free. And we work with a system of recycled tires and soda bottles, and have now this platform at Sealand to develop our plans to bring people together to realize it within, let's say, 3 years. So that's what we're working on.
Yeah. You were recently in India. Where is it now? Is it under development in Germany or?
Oh, it's under development in many different countries, and I started in Germany. Had several projects here, a floating garden, and some other raft adventures in Berlin or Hanover. And this year I went to India, to Goa to be exact, and I needed to know if that system would be working also in developing countries. Because they've got a different culture and different recycling technologies, and that was quite interesting, because I found out that it's even easier to make a recycling raft or island in India than it is in mid-Europe. Because in India, and I think that it's the same in Brazil or China, in Africa, everywhere, where in all these developing countries, they are used to improvise, and they see material, even used material, as a value. Not like in Germany, the people believe only in. So that was quite interesting. We have now a team also over there. I met really good people, nice people, and very educated and well. Of course, they are. They're very smart, the Indians. So, and